Here are my top 5 presidential speeches of the 20th century.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
On June of 1987, President Reagan gave his now famous address at the Berlin Wall. Built in 1961, the Berlin Wall stood as a symbol of the Cold War between the United States and Soviet Russia. At the time, Reagan's speech didn't gain much traction in the American media, but today we recognize it as a turning point in the Cold War.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
On December 8th, 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt responded to the attacks on Pearl Harbor. This was the first significant attack on American soil since the War of 1812. America would enter World War II, and a new precedent would be set for America. The historically isolationist country would, from here on out, be an active force in world affairs.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The speech on our list is Dwight D Eisenhower's farewell address. On January 17, 1961, Eisenhower issued a stark warning to America. Eisenhower saw firsthand the rise of a permanent armaments industry after World War II that he described as the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower saw this as an internal threat to liberty and democracy, and that only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry could curtail.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Days after Eisenhower delivered his ominous farewell address, John F. Kennedy began his presidency with a rousing inaugural address. On January 20th, 1961, Kennedy outlined a new vision for the future and a call to action for a young generation of baby boomers. This would be a turning point for the nation as a new generation shifted the political and cultural identity of America.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
When Franklin Roosevelt delivered his inaugural address in March of 1933, the United States was in the midst of the Great Depression, with no end in sight. Roosevelt would change all that. What's brilliant about Roosevelt's inaugural speech is that he addressed the problem on a psychological level first. In doing so, he gave hope and courage to a nation in fear. By the end of Roosevelt's presidency, the United States would be the most powerful nation in the world,